The Earth has journeyed through many vast eras. It began with the fiery lava world of the Hadean Eon, and it took an incredibly long time, all the way until the Ediacaran period, for life to finally emerge. How long exactly? About 4.06 billion years. If you compare that to the Earth's total age of 4.5 billion years, it means it took nearly the entire history of the planet just to produce one tiny creature we could actually call alive. After the Ediacaran, animals truly began to transform. In this video, we're going to dive into the Cambrian Explosion and the eras that followed. If you haven't seen the previous video yet, I highly recommend checking that out first. Meet this little guy, Spergina from the Ediacaran period. These creatures had no bones, they were essentially just soft bits of floating flesh. But then came the Cambrian Explosion. Suddenly, eyes appeared. Shortly after, legs began to sprout. And once they could see, they needed to eat, so mouths evolved. But a mouth isn't enough on its own, you need a digestive system to go with it. Some creatures even developed shells or scales for protection. Every species was different, and suddenly, a massive variety of animal groups appeared all at once. The first true star of the Cambrian was the trilobite. They grew shells, joints, and legs, making the ocean floor their home. If you were a trilobite back then, there are two creatures you would definitely run into, Anomalocaris and Pikaia. Pikaia looks a bit like a fish, though it's technically hard to categorize. Anomalocaris, on the other hand, was about 2.5 feet long, a true apex predator. In other words, it's coming to eat you. Think about this. It took 4 billion years just to get soft-bodied organisms, yet it took only 20 million years to jump from simple flesh to these complex hunters. Why the sudden rush? Two main reasons: oxygen and the evolutionary arms race. If one creature gets eaten, the next one learns to run. The one after that grows legs to run even faster. Evolution accelerated because everyone was trying to stay alive. As we move into the Ordovician period, the oceans were teeming with life, but the land remained as silent as a graveyard. New giants appeared in the sea, the cephalopods. Don't confuse them with modern squids, though. These monsters were 20 feet long. To give you an idea of their size, look at this comparison. Coral reefs were blooming, and the ancestors of snails, called brachiopods, were everywhere. And our reigning champions, the trilobites, were still going strong, diversifying into all sorts of shapes and sizes. But just as the seas were thriving, another ice age struck. This led to the first mass extinction, wiping out 85% of marine life. It didn't just happen randomly. The supercontinent Gondwana drifted into the South Pole, turning the world into a giant ice cube. The Ordovician ended in extinction, leading us into the Silurian period. As the world thawed, our friend Pikaia returned. Previously, creatures had no jaws and just ate whatever drifted by. But during the Ice Age, they evolved. Now they had jaws. They became predator fish. Let's look at the land. Even though there were no trees yet, a tiny hero washed ashore, a plant called Cooksonia. This was a vascular plant, meaning it had tubes to store food. They were only about 10 centimeters tall, but because of them, the earth turned green for the very first time. And where there are plants, things will follow to eat them. Centipedes and arachnids began to crawl onto land. While we don't know the exact first pioneer, they were likely the ancestors of these two insect groups. However, the Silurian also held a nightmare: Eurypterids, or sea scorpions. Related to Anomalocaris, these 8-foot-long predators absolutely ruled the oceans. Next, we enter the Devonian, often called the Age of Fish. Jaws continued to evolve until we saw armored giants like Dunkleosteus. But forget the fish for a moment. The land was changing. The tiny Cooksonia evolved into massive forests, thanks to Archaeopteryx. These were the world's first true trees, with real wood and leaves, reaching heights of 30 feet. With forests providing a home, a creature that couldn't find its place in the crowded ocean decided to try its luck on land. Tiktaalik. Neither fully fish nor fully amphibian. It's what we call a missing link. It had scales and gills like a fish, but its bone structure allowed it to prop itself up on land. It wasn't alone. Ichthyostega appeared too, becoming the first four-legged animal, tetrapod. But then, another mass extinction. Why? Believe it or not, it was the trees. They sucked so much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere that the climate shifted, and oxygen levels in the ocean plummeted. 80% of animal species vanished, including the armored giants. The age of fish was over. We then move into the Carboniferous, or the Coal Age. When trees died back then, there were no fungi or bacteria to rot them away. They just piled up and eventually turned into the coal we use today. The creatures like Tiktaalik had evolved into reptiles. They no longer had to return to the water to lay eggs. They could lay them right on the ground. This allowed them to conquer the deep inland. By the Permian period, we see dino clones like Dimetrodon. Dimetrodon had a massive sail of skin on its back. We're still not quite sure what it was for. Along with its herbivore cousin Edaphosaurus, these were synapsids. This is important because all mammals, descended from this lineage. The Permian also had Gorgonopsians, the apex predators, and Cynodonts. But their reign was cut short by the Great Dying. Gigantic volcanoes erupted, so massive the lava flows were the size of the United States. The resulting methane and carbon dioxide triggered runaway global warming. Oceans lost oxygen and turned acidic. It was a catastrophic chain reaction. 96% of marine life, including our long-lived trilobites, perished. 70% of land life died. Overall, 90% of all life on Earth was gone. Only 10% remained. Among that surviving 10% was a small creature called Lystrosaurus. In the next video, this little guy will become the forefather of the dinosaurs. If the Great Dying hadn't happened, the age of mammals might have started much sooner, and the dinosaurs might never have risen. But history took a different path. That wraps up our journey through the Permian and the Great Dying. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video to talk about the dinosaurs.